Give back the $40,000 my son stole, or get out, Dad demanded, door ajar. My sister piled on. My daughter eyewitnessed him by the safe. We all believe. I grinned, placed the bank statements and her vehicle contract on the desk. Minutes later, her husband strode away, and she. Emotional hook. First 10 seconds. Can you imagine walking into your childhood home? The smell of Sunday roast in the air, only to have your own father block the doorway and accuse your 13-year-old son of stealing $40,000? My blood ran cold, but the shock quickly turned into a simmering rage. What the hell was happening? My name is Kevin. I'm 34, a pathologist. My job is about facts, about cause and effect. In the morgue, there's a chain of custody, a clear progression of truth. At home, well, in my family, I've always been the background guy. The one who fixes things, who holds doors, who says, it's fine, even when it's absolutely not. If our family was a photograph, my sister Alyssa would be perfectly centered, smiling, and I'd be that blur behind her, probably carrying all the coats. My son, Eli, is 13. He's quiet like me. He loves chess, old computer parts, and has hair that just does its own thing. On school mornings, we share a stale muffin in the car, and he's the one who reminds me to breathe when my phone starts going wild. Divorce left me with 50-50 custody and a permanent to-do list. Forms, sneakers, lunch money, important dates. At work, I thrive on clinical precision. Everything measured, labeled, recorded. No room for golden children in there. Just cold, hard facts. But at home, facts seem to just slide. Alyssa, 2 years older, a marketing manager with shiny teeth, a shiny SUV, and even shinier opinions, always shone brightest. When we were kids, Mom framed Alyssa's spelling bee ribbons, while my science fair medals got tossed into a drawer with dead batteries and old cords. That drawer, the junk drawer as Dad called it, still exists. I learned to laugh along, to agree that my efforts were just miscellaneous. I told myself I wasn't bitter. Not really. I worked nights, paid off debts that weren't even mine, took my turns, then took hers when she skipped them. She'd call me Kevy when she wanted something, like I was 6 again and she was being cute. And it always worked. Sunday dinner remained a fixture, even after my marriage didn't. Mom would do her roast with carrots. Dad would referee family arguments, beer in hand. Alyssa would swan in late and loud. I'd arrive with paper towels, a salad, and the quiet certainty that I'd leave with someone's list of chores. But that Sunday, the air felt stiff as Eli and I walked up their driveway. The old oak tree cast long, unsettling shadows over my minivan. My stomach nodded for reasons I couldn't name. Eli nudged me. You okay? He whispered. Yeah. I lied, forcing a smile. Let's just smile. We stepped inside. Mom barely glanced up. Alyssa stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, lips pressed, posture rigid, like she was in a courtroom. Her husband, Brad, hovered like her personal bailiff. Their daughter, Kendall, 9, swung her legs from a barstool, watching us all like a reality show. Dad wasn't sitting. He stood in the living room doorway, hand on the frame, like a bouncer. Return the $40,000 your son took, or stay out, he said, holding the door, physically barring our entry. Eli sucked in a sharp breath. I blinked. The words didn't compute. They sounded like a radio playing in another room, distant and distorted. Then Alyssa chimed in. My daughter saw him near the safe. We all agreed. I looked at Eli. He'd gone completely pale. My mind, trained to seek evidence, fumbled for a clipboard that wasn't there. No chain of custody, just an accusation, thrown like a brick. Dad? I said slowly, my voice tight. What's safe? Mom wiped a perfectly clean spot on the already gleaming counter. Don't make this harder, Kevin. Kendall swung her legs faster, avoiding my gaze. Brad sniffed, like he smelled something burning. Eli's voice was a barely audible whisper. I didn't. Not here. I looked at him, my voice shaking. We stood there, half in, half out, like a test. The house smelled of roast, lemon cleaner, and something else, something cheap. Fear, maybe. Or the sickening sweetness of someone's lie. Say you'll bring it back, Alyssa said, her voice bright and firm, like she was closing a deal. Then we can eat. I didn't answer. 1,000 small, heavy memories started rising in my throat, each one as dense as sand. From the living room, Aunt Marie's voice drifted out, sugary and insidious. He always was a strange one. That was the first trigger. Not the absurd dollar amount, but that flat, casual line. Like I'd been a problem for years, and everyone had just been waiting for an excuse to say it out loud. The safe wasn't new. Dad kept it in his bedroom closet, hidden behind his flannel shirts. A black box with a keypad and a just-in-case key. It held passports, bonds, the house title, Mom's ring when she used too much lotion, and cash. Always cash. Banks fail, Dad would say. Cash doesn't. He loved to tell the story of the time his bank put a hold on his paycheck. 14 days, he'd bellow, as if the number had personally insulted him. Never again. So he kept envelopes, dated, in that safe. He showed Alyssa the inside, like it was a museum exhibit. He never showed me. I learned to stand in the hall, to not look like I was looking. Over the years, money quietly left that safe for Alyssa's emergencies. The daycare messed up. Brad's job was in transition. The SUV tires were a surprise. Mom would say it was temporary, then lay out dessert. Dad would grumble, so he wouldn't look soft. I'd drive home with leftovers, wondering how to cover my own bills. I picked up extra shifts. I said no to vacations. I said yes to, I'll pay you back Friday, even when I knew Friday was a fairy tale. My ex-wife called me predictable and safe, like it was a complaint. She left me for a man who called himself a fixer. He fixed nothing. I fixed the custody schedule. I fixed Eli's trust in adults. Alyssa liked to call me frugal and laugh, like I was some sitcom character who kept receipts in a jar. The truth was less cute. My checking account had a permanent bruise. I had one suit for court, 2 shirts for work, and a closet organized like a lab. Blue, gray, black. It wasn't an aesthetic. It was triage. The humiliations were small, but constant. Kev, can you Venmo me $60? Kev, can you pick up Kendall? We're swamped. Kev, can you talk to Dad? He's being stubborn about the roof. And I'd say yes. Every yes made the next yes easier for them to demand. When Eli was 10, he asked why we didn't have a fun fund like Kendall's family. I told him the truth. We were building slowly. I felt my face heat with the shame of honesty. He just patted my arm. Okay, he said. We can still make pancakes. I watched my sister buy a new car with a big red bow on it. I watched Dad slip her an envelope and say, "Don't tell your mother." I watched Brad drink craft beer, explain startups, and use words like burn rate while he burned through everyone else's patience. He called me Doc, but it was always a joke, like my career was just a hobby. Kev, you're so lucky. Alyssa once said, you don't have to care what you wear. It sounded like a compliment, but it felt like a gentle kind of erasure. When Kendall turned 9, Alyssa threw a party with a rented unicorn and a balloon arch that scraped the ceiling. Eli and I stood by the cooler. Could we get pizza after? He asked. I checked my account, did the math. Asterisk we could. We would. Asterisk I put my hands on his shoulders, felt the bones. He was growing. Growth costs money. Growth is relentless. 2 months before that terrible Sunday, Alyssa called me crying. We're drowning, she sobbed. Brad's equity won't vest until Q4. We made a bridge loan from Dad's safe, and he's being a jerk about it. I pressed the phone between my shoulder and cheek, scraping a tray in the morgue. There are just some calls you can't pause. Can you talk to him? You're good with him. I'm good at not yelling, I said, my voice flat. That's not the same. Please, she pleaded. Just smooth it. I'll square with you. I smoothed it. I sat with Dad on the porch and listened to him explain how he wasn't raised this way, how his father would have thrown him out, that he wasn't raising a pack of beggars. I nodded, reminded him Alyssa was stressed. He fumed, then softened, then fished for the key to the safe, just like he always did. Just this once, he said, which, of course, meant not just this once. And now, that same Dad stood with his hand on the door, telling me to return $40,000 my son allegedly took. The accusation landed like a slap, because it made no sense in our world. My son didn't go into their room without permission. He didn't touch things that weren't his. He still said sir to Dad, even when Dad was wrong. They picked him because he was defenseless, because he was mine, because if I was the blur, then my kid was the ghost behind the blur. Easier to blame him than stop the bleeding. Where did you get 40 grand? I asked. My voice was calm, clinical, because calm was the only card I ever held. Don't play dumb. Alyssa snapped. Dad counted it last week. Today it's gone. Who has the key? We all do. she said, then realized what she'd revealed and backpedaled. Dad keeps it, but we know where it is. That's not the point. Did you call the police? I asked. Mom made a face like I'd farted in church. This is family, right? Asterisk family means no police, no paperwork, no chain of custody. Just consensus. Family means we all agreed, counts as evidence. Family means Kindle's. I saw Eli near the closet trumps Eli's I didn't do it. Because Kindle is a certified witness, and Eli is just the kid who fixes old laptop chargers and keeps to himself. Asterisk I looked at Eli. His mouth trembled. He didn't cry. He just looked wounded in a way that would scab over wrong if I let it. Something in me started to harden. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was resolve. I'd seen Bones callous around breaks. It felt like that. Okay, I said. We're leaving. Dad's jaw ticked. You come back with the money. Alyssa smiled, like she'd won. This doesn't have to be dramatic, Kev. As I turned, Aunt Marie's voice followed me out again, sugar-coated and sharp. He was always different. I drove Eli home in silence. At a red light, he said, chess after dinner? Like normal might still be available if we just asked for it quietly. Yes, I said. But first, I'm going to do something. What? I gripped the wheel. I'm going to collect the facts. The big scene wasn't a holiday. It was 2 nights later at Dad and Mom's. Alyssa had texted a deadline, like a debt collector. Asterisk Wednesday, 7 p.m. We need resolution. Asterisk she even sent it in a group text. Kendall added a unicorn sticker, because she's 9 and the world is stickers. I asked Eli if he wanted to come. He shook his head. No, he said quietly. They don't see me, Dad. I'll mess up the picture. It hurt, because it was true. On my way, I picked up a banker's box. Inside were bank statements, printed and highlighted. I'd pulled them in my kitchen, a cup of cold coffee growing colder beside me, my hand shaking. I called my own bank, Dad's credit union, the leasing company, and customer service reps who sounded bored until I said fraud. I requested proofs, timelines, transfers. I even printed Alyssa's car lease, because she once sent me a photo of the contract for advice, and forgot that advice leaves a trail. At 7:04 p.m., I walked in. Dad stood again, a bouncer. Mom hovered. Alyssa and Brad were on the couch, a visible crack of distance between them. Kendall worked a tablet in the corner. Aunt Marie had brought apple pie and a side of judgment. I set the box on the coffee table. Before we do anything, I said, my voice steady, we're going to do this with evidence. Alyssa rolled her eyes. Oh my God, Kevin. Shush, Dad said surprisingly. He likes paperwork when it looks official. I pulled out the first folder. Here's the transaction log from the safe's bank bag. Last 3 withdrawals were July 2nd, August 19th, and September 30th. The cash counted at those times was logged by Dad and signed by. I looked at him. You signed it, Dad. I keep notes, he said defensively. I'm not a caveman. Good, I replied. Because the sum total at the end of September, before the alleged theft, was $12,300. Not 40. Silence. Alyssa blinked first. Dad must have miscounted. I didn't, he snapped. I laid down the second folder. Car lease for a 2024 RX 350, I said. Signed by Alyssa and Brad in June. Monthly payment, $912. Down payment, $12,000. Paid in cash. You sent me this for advice. You texted, is this a good idea? I replied, it's not my business. That was my mistake. Brad bristled. What does this have to do with your money timeline? Because on July 2nd, I said, sliding a copy of Dad's note across the table, Alyssa withdrew $10,000 from the safe. I held up the July statement from Dad's credit union, showing a cash deposit of the same amount into Alyssa's account. Then on August 19th, $5,000. Then on September 30th, $3,000. I set down 3 printed screenshots of Alyssa's Venmo to the dealership, with cringe captions like, car stuff, LOL. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. She looked small. Alyssa stood up. This is ridiculous. Brad stood too. We're done, he said suddenly. His voice clipped. He grabbed his keys. I told you not to drag me into your family's weird cash obsession. He looked at me like I'd built this. You people are insane. He walked out, the door thudding behind him. Kendall flinched. Her tablet screen timed out. Alyssa's hand shook. Wait, she said weakly. Brad. She took a step toward the door, then stopped, trapped by the room. I breathed. My heart didn't race. It felt like it slowed, like the body does when it's ready for surgery. I reached for the last folder. There's also the security camera. Dad frowned. We don't have a camera. You do, I said calmly. Remember when the neighbor's kid was sneaking into your garage for the bike pump? You installed a motion cam in the hallway by your bedroom door. You forgot about it because the notifications annoyed you, but the app didn't forget. I turned my phone around. A still frame. Alyssa on September 30th at 2:18 p.m., stepping out of the bedroom. Envelope in hand. Timestamped. The angle was unflattering. Truth often is. Alyssa's chin trembled. That was for Mom's ring cleaning. The envelope was labeled emergency. I said you took it, I corrected. You texted me that night. I pulled out a final printout. Can you spot me $200 for Kendall's art camp? We're tight this month. Dad sank down, the beer in his hand looking suddenly heavy. So no, I said, my voice low. Eli didn't take $40,000. There wasn't $40,000 in there to take. You took it in chunks and didn't keep track. And when Dad counted and panicked, you pointed at my son. Aunt Marie made a small sound, like a kettle finally clicking off. Well, she said. I looked at each of them. This isn't about revenge, I stated. This is about closure. You're not going to say Eli's name that way again. You're not going to make me the junk drawer for your mistakes. The next time money goes missing, you can call the police, like people do when they think a crime occurred. But you won't call me, and you won't blame my kid. Alyssa whispered, I'm sorry. It sounded like a word she'd never truly had to use before. I shook my head. Not to me. To him. Mom started to cry softly. Dad stared at the camera still on my phone, like it had personally betrayed him. I put the folders back in the box. We're done here, I said. If you want to speak to me again, you can start with an apology to Eli and a written agreement about that safe, chain of custody, key control, signatures. If that sounds cold, remember who made it necessary. No one stopped me. No one called after me. The only voice that followed was Alyssa's, small and breaking. Brad? She called to the hallway, but the house held its breath and did not answer. They tried to rewind it the next day. People always try to rewind after someone hit stop. At 8:12 a.m., Mom called. I let it ring out. At 8:14, she texted, breakfast. At 8:20, you're being dramatic. At 9:03, Alyssa is fragile. At 9:50, a photo of the roast leftovers. The messages stacked up like coupons I wouldn't use. Dad waited until evening. Come over. We'll sort it out. Don't be stupid. I sat at our kitchen table with Eli and a list of things to buy. Milk, detergent, a birthday card for a classmate named Liam. Eli tapped a pawn against the board. Do you think they'll say sorry? He asked. I don't know, I said. But we're going to stop standing in doorways, waiting for permission. He moved his pawn. Check, he said, a shy smile peeking through. We built routines that didn't have them at the center. It felt both wrong and clean, like finally rearranging a kitchen drawer and throwing out the bent forks. I changed our grocery store. We started eating breakfast at the diner on Wednesdays, because it used to be Sunday with my parents, and we needed a new anchor. The waitress learned Eli's order: scrambled eggs, sourdough, hot chocolate. She called him Professor because of his glasses. He glowed. At work, I was steadier than usual. I stopped checking my phone between cases. I stopped answering calls I didn't want to answer. My coworkers noticed I wasn't the guy who would cover any shift, no questions asked. It felt like heresy. It felt like oxygen. Alyssa's texts toggled between apology and attack, the way a person toggles between hot and cold water when they don't know the mix. I was stressed. You blindsided me. Family shouldn't air dirty laundry. You humiliated me. Are you happy? Can we just reset? We're not perfect. Then a photo of Kendall with a crooked project and the caption, she misses you. I stared at the gluey paper tree and felt the old tug. Kendall didn't do this. Adults did. I typed and deleted. I tried again. When you apologize to Eli, we can talk. No reply. Brad was quiet, which was loud in its own way. Through a neighbor, we learned he'd gone to stay with a friend. Alyssa posted filtered stories about private growth, and not all journeys are meant to be understood. The SUV made it into 3 of the posts, gleaming like a trophy, with captions about grit. I scrolled, then set my phone face down and washed the dishes by hand, because the rhythm calmed me. Dad sent one last blast. You went too far. Your sister's marriage is none of your business. I stared at the screen. I pictured the door frame and his hand on it. Gatekeeping dignity. I was tired. Eli's name is my business, I typed. Your safe is your business. Keep it that way. A week passed. 2. The calls thinned. When Mom texted, it was practical. Aunt Jean's birthday is Saturday. Like we could just pretend nothing had split. We didn't go. Eli and I played chess on the porch and listened to the neighbor mow his lawn. The sun slid across our building like it always did, whether we were in or out of anybody's favor. Then the knock. Saturday, 4 p.m. I opened the door to Alyssa, standing on my mat. Hair messy, eyes rimmed red. No glitter, no script. She held a grocery bag like a shield. Hi, she said. Can I come in? Eli looked at me from the couch. I nodded, and he slipped to his room, closing the door with soft loyalty. Alyssa stood in my kitchen, clutching the bag. I brought muffins, she said, like she'd stolen the idea of kindness from a movie. I waited. Silence sat with us. She crumpled first. I messed up, she said, her voice breaking. I panicked about the money, and I used Kindle, and I blamed Eli because I knew you'd fix it, and I hate myself. She swallowed. Brad left. He says I make everything someone else's fault. He says I never learned to carry my own weight. He says I'm cruel. I thought he was being dramatic. Now I think he might be right. I let it sit. I didn't hug her. I held the moment steady, like a tech holds a light. I need you to apologize to Eli, I said. Specific. No if. No but. She nodded quickly. I will. I already told Kendall we were wrong. She cried. I told her grown-ups get it wrong big, sometimes. She asked if we're bad people. I didn't know what to say. You say we did a bad thing, I said. And then you show her how you fix it. Alyssa wiped her eyes. Dad won't talk to me. He says I embarrassed him. That's not my part, I said. You and Dad have your own drawer to open. She managed a wet laugh. You and your drawers. They're useful, I said softly. We called Eli out. Alyssa turned to him, hands shaking, and did the thing I asked. No ifs, no buts. I'm sorry, Eli. I lied about you. I knew it wasn't true, and I said it anyway because it made my life easier for a minute. That was wrong. I will never do that again. Eli looked at her for a long time. He's 13 and carries a scale in his chest that weighs what people say. He nodded once. Okay, he said. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. It was a receipt. After Alyssa left, the messages from Dad changed tone. Shorter. Your sister came crying. You made a spectacle. We don't do police. The undertone was always the same. Keep the door where I want it. I wrote back once. Boundaries aren't spectacles, they're rules. He didn't respond. On Sunday at 6 p.m., my phone lit up with missed calls. Mom, Dad, Aunt Marie. Then one last text from Mom. We're eating. Your plate is here. I stared at it. My palm itched with the old reflex to jump when summoned. I set the phone down. Eli and I went to the diner. The waitress brought hot chocolate and winked at his chest set. On the TV above the counter, a game played to a loud room. People cheered for people who couldn't hear them. Eli said, You ever think about how many people shout at a screen, expecting it to help? I laughed into my coffee, and it felt like a full breath. The next week, Dad called to say he'd installed a new safe. Different code, no spare key under the flannel. Sign-in sheet, too. He grunted, like I'd forced him into paperwork jail. Good, I said. Treat it like it matters. He paused. You always think you're better than us, he said. I never did, I said quietly. I just stopped letting you be worse to me. He hung up. There were losses. The family chat got quieter. Invitations stopped arriving with emojis and started arriving with formal times, as if we were distant neighbors. Aunt Marie posted a meme about ungrateful children. I didn't get tagged. At first, the silence hurt. Then it felt like a room with a window propped open. Air moved. We built our life with small choices. Eli joined a school chess club, and I volunteered to drive 2 kids home after meets because I liked hearing them talk about gambits in the back seat. We went to the thrift store and found a jacket that made him stand taller. I replaced the broken desk lamp. I got my first good night's sleep in months. Every mundane fix felt like a luxury purchase. Some nights, the anger bubbled. I'd think of Dad's hand on the door, and my teeth would clench. I'd picture Kendall's small voice repeating something an adult told her to say. I'd feel the unfairness flare, hot and stupid. And then I'd put it back. Not revenge. I'd tell myself in the mirror, like I was rinsing after brushing. Closure. When Alyssa texted updates. Brad is still gone. We're selling the SUV. I didn't toss confetti. I typed, I hope you're okay. And I meant it, in the grown-up sense. Okay. As in you learn. She asked for a budget template. I sent it, then didn't follow up. I am not a coach. I am her brother, with a finite battery. The best marker of change wasn't a speech or an event. It was Tuesday night at 9:30, when I realized I hadn't thought about the safe once all day. That used to be my quiet hobby, worrying about other people's money. It was gone. I went to bed. I slept. The final scene was quiet. A Thursday in September, a month after it all broke. Mom asked to meet at the diner. No group text. She came in an old sweater, hands cupped around her mug. I miss you, she said. I miss Eli. I miss not being scared around you. Scared? I asked. Scared you'll hold up a mirror. Scared you won't make it easy. I'm not making it easy anymore, I said. I'm making it honest. She nodded. We made you the problem because you didn't yell. A tap on her cup. Your father says the sign-in sheet is dumb. He still uses it. Good. Dumb things work. He won't say sorry, she whispered. I noticed. I am, she said. I'm sorry. Thank you. Tell Eli. Not me. Him. I will. She gave a small, pained smile. You were always different. For once, it didn't cut. After she left, Eli slid into the booth. He'd been watching pancakes at the counter. Was that okay? He asked. It was. We don't need everything. Just enough. He nodded. Do we still play on Sundays? Yeah, I said. But we'll pick our own time. I'm not riding for revenge. No victory dance. Just a line. I won't step back. No one points at my kid to make life easier. If something goes missing, use the sign-in sheet. If words are said, own them. Different kept us visible. My name is Kevin. I cut through noise for a living. Now I do it when needed at home. The moral's simple. I won't pay for lies or lower the bar for peace. This isn't revenge. It's closure. It's a door I hold open for me and my kid. If you want in, the price is simple. Tell the truth. Respect the boundary. Bring your receipts. So, what would you have done when your own family tried to blame your child for their messes, just to cover their own? Have you ever had to draw a line with family, even when it hurt like hell? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.